So, all right, Brianne, if you want to introduce yourself and take it away, and I will find your slideshow.
All right, so I'm Brianne Burnson with Plum Fabulous Foods. We are a small organic farm in Plum, Texas. We've been gardening for 15 years now. A couple years before that, we were in town. I'm self-taught. I taught myself how to garden from reading a book. And then we ended up writing our own because Texas is fabulous in the fact that you can garden year round. But most of the gardening books that you'll read are meant for the North, and they get hard freezes. And so they don't have the same kind of problems with grass that we do down here. And so everything that we do revolves around managing grass 100%. So we kind of took a blend of the Back to Eden method and then the new square foot gardening method, and we merged those together and then figured out a way that we could deal with Texas's grass. And then that's kind of the system that we put together and we try to teach people about, because we've made a ton of mistakes in the last 15 years. And it's a real passion for us to help people get over that learning curve. Like Rebecca probably would come to most of the same conclusions if she spent 15 years making the same mistakes that we did. And so we just really are trying to get people in the beginning phases, or sometimes they can try to retrofit their gardens to adopt some of our methods and just save themselves 3 things that we all need more of: time, energy, and money.
Yes.
Okay? All right. So we do have a website, plumfabulousfoods.com. We have our book available on there. We have our garden journal too that we have a blank version of now that you can print out. And so we have free resources on there. We have YouTube videos and all sorts of things. We do in-person tours and classes, and we love working with John and Rebecca and Live Free Academy and their exit and build program, so we can reach as many people as we can and help.
Perfect, John.
Okay, so this is a picture of our current garden. It is 32 feet by 110. It's less than 1/10 of an acre, and we've been harvesting an average of 3,000 pounds a year for the last several years.
That is a substantial amount.
All right, so these are our top 10 tips for helping people out. Start small. Okay, like don't start with a ginormous garden or you're going to hate it. You're going to drive yourself crazy. It's going to be too much work. It's like having children. We start with one and then you have another and your heart grows and you can handle the children. It's the same thing with gardening. Begin with a great design. So I loved Rebecca's quote. It was perfect. It so matches the same way that we feel about gardening. You can have a fabulous designed garden, but if you don't ever go out there, it's not going to grow. Or you can have a really poorly designed garden and you're out there all the time maintaining it and it's barely going to grow. So we try to find a nice, happy balance between a well-established, like a well set up and designed garden and spending as little time out there as we possibly can to get as much output as we possibly can. So it's all about the soil. We believe in creating your own soil rather than using what you have. Because if you use your native soil, you're going to have to spend time amending it, soil test, those sorts of things. And if you just start with your own soil that's very easy to create using compost and mulch, then you're going to start off on the right foot right from the beginning. When you have really great soil, you can ignore a lot of the gardening rules that they tell you. So like how far apart you plant your plants, what can you put next to those plants? All of those things we throw out the window. And if you have a bed that's really densely packed with vegetables, then you're not going to have a chance for those weeds to grow because you're going to be promoting the kind of things that you want growing in that space. We always like having 3 to 4 foot wide beds. That's the best utilization of your space. Anything wider than that, then you can't sit on the side and like reach your arm in and harvest. So anything narrower than that is a poor utilization of your space. We encourage people to grow vertical anytime you can. So we do a lot of trellising with tomatoes, cantaloupe, cucumbers, baby watermelon, squash, beans. It's very important that you feed your garden every year. You can't create fabulous garden soil once and then walk away from it and think that you're done. Okay. And I see this mistake a lot of times. You have to feed your soil. You can't take plants out of your soil all year long and never put anything back in the soil.
Because so that's like compost.
You got to have compost. Yeah. So we've never used fertilizer in our garden ever. We've used one bag that somebody gave me to try to promo for them. But other than that, we've never used any fertilizer. I've had soil tests done on my garden just to prove to people that the numbers were great. And it said 0 on everything that is a typical addition that farmers have to put onto their soil. So we had flying colors with all of our micronutrients and minerals that the garden needed. So homemade compost is really great. Plus, when you have a garden, you got to pull all these dead plants out. But what are you going to do with them? Yep. You turn them back into soil. You got to put them somewhere.
Symbiotic.
Yeah, it's very symbiotic. Absolutely. And then if you introduce animals into that equation as well, now you're feeding them. They're giving you their manure, and so it's a fabulous relationship. And it should be go without saying by now, but grow organic. If you do use fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, you're going to overly feed the microorganisms in your soil with nitrogen. They're going to get like spastic crazy. It's crazy feeding day in the soil. They're going to overpopulate. And then that nitrogen is going to run out. They're all going to die off because now there's no food. And you're going to have a really high salt content in your soil after that. So it's like a quick fix. And it looks great for a little while, but in the long run, it's not good for you. And it's definitely not good for your soil.
Yep. And it's expensive.
It is. Yeah. All right. So just like Rebecca was teaching you guys, the most important thing is to start with a plan. So you don't know how many plants to sit down and plan or when to plan them if you don't know what you're going to be growing, if you don't know what you have space to be growing. And so these are all really important things to keep in mind. So we like to do a simple sketch like this when we're building a garden for somebody. We like to lay out like how far apart the T-posts are going to be. And that tells us how many we're going to buy and how far apart the beds, how wide the beds are going to be. So we know, do we get 3-foot landscape fabric or 4-foot landscape fabric? You know, what are their needs and stuff?
Less cutting.
That's right. That's right. All right. Again, going back to weeds, I don't have time to weed. I don't like to weed. I don't know anybody that does. And so we've learned a lot of things over the year to help keep weeds out. And one of those things are these dense plantings that we're talking about. So you can see I totally ignore all the spacing requirements that they say. This is a bed of beets up here. And like, there's just no chance for weeds to grow in that. Plus, I'm getting the most out of my soil. When you have really loose soil like this, it's very easy to broadcast seed things out. You're not having to go in there and thin. I never thin my beds, ever, ever, ever. Plants will grow. Strongest, healthiest ones get harvested first. Everything else gets left in the soil, and it kind of moves each other out of the way as they need to grow. And so instead of having to do a staggered planting, especially in the summertime, instead of having to go out there every 2 weeks and re-sow beets, well, I just throw the whole bag out there and then harvest as we need to. It does make it a little bit harder to harvest in the very beginning when it's like a jungle in there.
Because you're looking for the biggest ones.
Yeah. But it's worth it to not have to go in there. I just think it's silly to kill seedlings, to go in there and thin things out so that things have space to grow. I've never done that. I've never adopted that practice, and things grow just fine. So, and the benefit again is that weeds don't have a chance to grow.
Yeah, there's so much attention already for the beets. It's like they've already got the party started.
Yeah. And they're taking up all the soil space. So you can see here, this is one. I had 2 beds of carrots like this last year, and so from April 19th to June 26th, I harvested 133 pounds of carrots from this one bed. This bed was 4 foot by 20 foot. It's an 80-foot square foot bed, you know. And this is what it was like. Every 2 weeks, I was harvesting carrots like that from it. And it literally kept looking like that because as you pulled those bigger carrots out, well, now all the ones that are small, they suddenly have enough, light and stuff to grow. And you can see this is what it looks like on the side. They are all growing right next to each other. And in a conventional garden, they would tell you don't do this. Yep. But when you follow these methods and you have really great soil, your soil can support that amount of growth in a small space.
That's amazing.
So again, starting seeds, I'm really happy to hear that you did that this year.
Yeah, because I used to cheat and I would go to like community gardens and buy the seed starters already. And so it actually has saved us a lot of money.
It does. Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to just go in there and see them grow every day.
Oh, it is. So. Yeah. It makes you feel successful right from the beginning. So we plant thousands of plants a year, so it's a huge money saver for us. We still have to go and get backups. Like I consider those things backups now, and it's great that we can go to a local nursery and get good plants still. But I'm like you, I want to control the varieties. I want to control the time. And in 8 square feet, I can grow 600 plants. If you just have a shelf and some shop lights, then that's everything you need. Another thing that we've really started to encourage people to do when I'm sowing seeds out directly in the garden, I really like to pre-sprout them. So anybody that's been in the health world for a while, you know about sprouting seeds. So these sprouting jars. So just like you would sprout microgreens or something that you're going to eat in your kitchen, if you pre-sprout your beets or your corn or some of those things, when you put them out in the garden, you just saved days of germination time, and you've controlled their moisture so that you know that they're going to sprout. You have to be very delicate with them, because if you knock off that root, it's not going to grow another one. That was it. So if you can be careful with them, this is a huge time saver, and again, really ensures success in the garden.
Maybe that's why we've never been able to grow corn.
Corn, it took me 3 years of failing before I grew corn. So pre-germinate your seeds and see if that helps. We're really lucky in Texas because we have 2 corn growing cycles, not just one. So if you missed the first one, try again.
Yes.
All right. Before we plant, we have to prep our bed. So just like Rebecca showed you guys in that picture of her bed, where she had already gone out there and put down newspaper, compost, and mulch. Once you do that to build your garden bed, you don't have to keep doing that every year. After that, you just need to prep your bed by putting some newspaper on top and then a fresh layer of mulch or compost. Because again, you want to feed your bed every year. So we typically do this in the spring or the fall. Typically it's in the fall because in the spring we're butchering chickens and we're busy and we don't have time. But if you take the time to do this, this is like a 10-minute step. Okay. You clean everything out of the bed, couple sheets of newspaper, get it wet, and a couple buckets of compost on top. Then when you're coming out to plant, it's ready. And all you have to do is poke a little hole through that newspaper and get your transplant in the soil below it. Super simple. And this keeps you from having to weed all summer long.
Yeah. Can I ask if this would work too? Because we tried this and I'm curious to see if it's a long-term solution. We planted our tomatoes in the row crops and put cardboard around them and then put the mulch on top. So the plant was there, but then around it, we did the cardboard.
It's the same thing. I use newspaper because my beds get rotated out so much. Cardboard takes a long time to break down. So like if that bed was always going to be something that just grew in the middle, then you're fine. Like you wouldn't want to broadcast seed carrots on top of that bed because they wouldn't be able to punch through the cardboard. Yeah. So it just depends on what your setup is. Like I know you guys have some of the taller beds, the wicking beds, and you have some in the ground. So like your ones in the ground would probably be ideal. So anytime you use anytime you use cardboard or newspaper, organically accepted method for weed prevention. So you're good to go. Just be sure and pull the tape off, because the tape will not break down.
Yeah, I did pull the tape off, and we tried to get newspaper, and that's like, I need your recycling connection.
Yeah.
I went to so many libraries, banks, all these places, like nobody reads the newspaper anymore. I'm like, oh no. Yeah. So we were like stashing Austin Chronicles whenever we would go to tap. Anyway, we got enough for that one mound, but it's a rare commodity these days.
Well, and that's an important point, is to use what you have access to. If you have access to a ton of pizza boxes, like use pizza boxes.
Yeah.
Some cardboard is thicker than others. And so I think that's a great option.